Hello everyone, and thank you so much for coming out to our first event, the HiveLive. So what we're trying to accomplish here is getting more information back into the industry. As you're probably aware, you know of Honeycomb. Congratulations. What we're here to do tonight is talk about 4K OK. And thank you to Mr. Andrew Fox on having cool graphics. So what we're trying to accomplish tonight is myself talking. We're going to have the DPP and Andy and Bill having a chat. Then we're going to have George from Telestream having a chat as well. So we'll hammer through the presentation. There'll be a lot of information to take in. Please ask questions if you want to do, but we want to kind of get through as much as possible, okay? So this is more of an awareness that we're trying to accomplish. So I have my fantastic little clicky thing. I am no Steve Jobs. That's me, which you're probably aware of. Hey, thank you. So Honeycomb embraces technology. Now, this is a big statement. When we started off Honeycomb, we wanted to rewrite the books on actually getting the high tech through and making sure it's affordable and people can use it. And it's a big aspect for us. UHD and 4K is a little bit of misnomer on that. We want to make it very clear that the broadcast stuff is a 3840 and the DCP stuff is going to be the 4096. We're going to be going for this one over here on the left-hand side. So what it will do is give you a very interesting way of where we started back in 1997 and where we are now. There's a lot more pixels, and this demonstration is to give you an idea that if you have something sitting on a VCD, God bless you, you cannot blow that up to UHD. If you are, you're an absolute lunatic. So it's showing us over the course of the time of the rasters getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And as you can see from the 1080 jump up to UHD, it's a large, large jump. Now this all makes very, very good relevant information from the production side, to the broadcast side, to the agency side. I hate saying future-proof, but hey, it's out there. Let's future-proof the shit out of everything, okay? So back in 1997, who was in the industry then? Yes, I've got old people. Nice work. So in 1997, where half of you weren't alive, it cost you around about $1 million to get a flame suite. Who knows those Onyx boxes, which were like fridges, huge, huge things. Digibeaters, 80K, operators, monitors, blah, blah, blah. To get you in the door to make a high-end commercial that people would give you money for to get it on air, you got to pony up 1.3 million. Along comes Apple and Final Cut Pro. Now in 2007, who was in the industry in 2007? Yay, it's a stupid question, I'm gonna stop saying that. Final Cut came in, demolished it at 1K. You had an entry level at £44,000. Now, these are circa, this is getting you in the door. It didn't actually come out with a HD version a little bit later, but this is giving you a perspective of how much the industry has actually changed. Now, the UHD entry level, yes, the operator's 20K, I get that, but this is showing you how much this is changing. The entry level is completely different to back in 1997. The boutique places are making very lovely coffees right now, and they've got fantastic operators. But if you want to enter the market on UHD, in today's market, it's completely accessible. This terrifies me, this. 1997, a flame cost you $1 million plus support. Now it's 500 quid a month. Now, that astonishes me. People are around, that is absolutely ridiculous on how that works. Avid, 150K, 50 quid a month, so forth, so forth. This is huge. If anyone's new about DaVinci back in the day, it cost a fortune. It was amazing. These guys are throwing in for free. Adobe, again, 50 quid a month. All this will get you entry. Before, it was not accessible. So, now the most important part is entry level of UHD. Now, you can go on to anywhere you want and get yourself a G5, a GH5. Anyone used it? Amazing camera. All the way down to the 55. Robbie got an F7. Perfect, even better. But it's showing you that even Red, at 20K to start shooting high-end product, it's accessible. What you can get out of these is, again, you've got your Flame, your Avids, FCPs, and Adobes. You can start exporting these codecs out of there. Now, as of Honeycomb, we're going to be accepting these codecs in, but Bill and Andy will talk about where the DPP is, because it's very, very clear that Honeycomb's vision is to associate ourselves very close to the DPP, very close to enterprise software like Vantage and Telestream, and we want to wrap ourselves around industry professionals who have solved these problems. Now, UHD is the next step. Andy and Bill will tell you about the path we took from SD to HD, which took a nice little time to get to there. but it's showing you that today you can go and buy the software, get this stuff out, get it to a distributor. Now, this is very interesting because with Honeycomb, we can bring in super speed, the internet's quick, we've got vid checker processing and signaling in and out. So we've solved the in process and out problem, ready to go with UHD. The P word. Right. So, progressive. For years and years, we've had terrestrial television that's been interlaced. And we've shot progressive for many, many, many years right now. So the big thing that's going on around the industry is how do we start getting progressive as a product? UHD, correct me if I'm wrong, is a progressive format. So how are we going to start getting progressive formats to an interlaced infrastructure of TV? More than likely going to go over the internet and to set-top boxes and a lot more smart. A lot of conversations are going on and all the broadcasters, all the people coming together, DPP, Honeycomb, other suppliers, to figure out the best way to deliver this to the punters. We can obviously see at home, we've got BT, we've got Sky, everyone's transmitting UHD. It's just how the commercial content and other suppliers are going to get in there. Up converting. You're a lunatic if you're shooting SD. Who's doing native SD? Fantastic. So if you're going to give me an SD file, I'm going to laugh at you. I'll laugh a little bit more. Then I'll kind of ask you where the HD file is. So coming into this, obviously HD is the closest native raster to it. Do we want to use that? Absolutely not. What this process is about is to give you awareness on getting into UHD. So why Honeycomb choose the DPP? So when I was at another particular company, our goal was to look at getting a file for a specific means for internal use. That means that the only kit that we could buy, we had to be dictated to what the file format was that we wanted in. It wasn't industry standard, it wasn't ready and fit for purpose, but everyone was using it. So when we started Honeycomb, I said, how can we align with a company, or an organization, not a company, that can come together to have a very clear vision on having the right format that's mandated throughout. And that's why we aligned with the DPP. I talked to Bill years ago, basically saying, here's the concept we're trying to do, and he says, thank God, hallelujah. So the other reason is, as I mentioned, it was governed by hardware. This is before DPP, before we got involved in this. The internal testing and guessing, it was 100% guessing. Finger in the sky. Is this going to work? Is it right? Do we have to transcode it? We never at the stage brought the native file in that we used to get to the broadcaster. That's changed now. We take in a DPP AVC intro, HD, and we get it out. Lovely gamma shifts and the beautiful peak per meter audio, which drove everyone's spanners. So the DPP came in and changed all this, changed the R128 audio, had a HD standard, put a wrapped standard around it and documentation. And that was a big thing for us. I didn't need to do it. Hooray, can go to the pub. And more importantly, the people who were doing it knew how to do it well. Are the channels accepting UHD today? No. We are coming together with the DPP, talking to the channels, understanding the requirements and getting the need. The last meeting we had was, do agencies want to send UHD? Last one for the hands. Who's an agency world and who wants to send UHD? Rob Jury, thank you. It's a Jerry Maguire moment. Yep, up the back, John Penn, thank you. So the question is it a cost association to you? Is it a big hairy beast you just don't want to touch? Or is it something that is just so far down the track that someone else will worry about it later? That's the questions I want you to have a think about to yourselves. See me after and give me a feedback of that, okay? So the DPP, as we said with Andy's going to come up and have a great chat to you and a very, very detailed one, which I skipped through all my slides. You're very lucky because people who know me was literally another run to the bar to listen to me talk. So I'm going to hand over to Andy. Andy's going to switch his lapel on, and here we go.
Okay, so that should be on.
There we go.
I'm going to hope it doesn't feedback. Hello, how many of you know about the DPP who are in the room? Before I do the really boring bit where I talk about what the DPP is, there's lots of hands going up, so I'm not going to do the quite so boring bit now. So I'm Andy, I look after business development at the DPP. If you don't know what the DPP are, we were set up by the BBC, ITV and Channel 4. And we were set up about 6 years ago, broadly as a result of the Fukushima disaster, when the tapes the huge supply of HD Cam SR tapes in the world were rather at risk. And what the broadcasters did in their collaborative way was went out and bought them all. So they all went out and said, how many tapes can we buy? And they bought them all. And then all of a sudden people worried because there was a shortage of tapes. So at that point, everybody realised that actually this tape thing, we can't just go on kind of outbidding each other for boxes of tapes. We've got to do something more sensible about it. Put in a file format that we can all work with, that can be efficient across the industry, and can make this much simpler. So that's where we came in. We work with lots of different broadcasters and other organisations. Post houses were hugely helpful in that process to get to delivering an AS11 file. And in 2014, that's when we switched over from receiving tapes for program delivery over to files. So that was really, really good. From then, we now have 270 organisations that we work with. So we work with a range of broadcasters, manufacturers and suppliers. We've got 100 production companies that are part of the DPP. In fact, that's what they look like. They range from everything from Fox, PBS, CBC, Sky, 5, in the broadcast space, over to Sony and Avid. Some Honeycomb in there as well as other,
you can notice the Honeycomb in the
I think there are other ad distribution platforms available. And tech firms like Apple, Microsoft, Dropbox, Google, YouTube, all kind of coming into the DPP family to start looking at how do we drive that change across the media sector. So Craig said I was going to go into some depth. I'm not going to go into too much depth because I realise that we will stand in front of the bar. But what I will do is go into a bit of depth about what we're up to. So this is our format of work for the next few months. This is what we're going to be putting out there. Absolutely, we've been doing a lot of work on UHD program spec, and as Craig said, we're now kicking off that work, partnership with Honeycomb and others, to develop a commercial spec, and I'll talk about that in a second. In the US, we've been working with the North American broadcasters, so with Fox, with PBS, with CBC, and with a ton of others, Turner, to develop 2 new file delivery specs out there for HD. We're working on a new IMS standard. We announced that last week for program mastering and international resale. So that will come out in kind of April next year. We're looking for that. And we're going to use that as a bit of a leapfrog into some adverts for online and how we might deliver those. And we've been working with Google, the IAB, and the 4As in the States on that. And I'll touch on that later. So there's a lot of stuff. Do come and find myself, or I've got colleagues, Caroline or Ulrich, who are in the audience. Come and find us if you want to know about any of the stuff we're doing, and I can talk in more depth about it. But we're going to get on and talk a little bit about UHD. So where are we with our work? Well, in a minute Bill's going to talk about the broadcaster side. We don't have any broadcasters that are saying, hey, I'm going to be first, I'm going to have a non-sports channel, and I'm going to do it on this date. That hasn't been announced yet. So what we're doing is we're getting ready for that, because in the past, what we've done is we kind of waited with the adverts, and we've had this thing, and I'll talk about it in a second, about where we went from SD ads to HD ads, but with UHD we want to get ready. So we've been putting together over the last 12 months a program delivery specification for UHD, and if the Honeycomb guys have got all your details, tomorrow morning we'll send you all of that in an email. We'll send you our UHD guide as well, so you can have a copy of all of those, so you can see what that looks like, what it looks like at a codec level, what it looks like at a delivery spec. But as has been said, it's 3840 by 2160 at 25 or 50 frames per second progressive, importantly. And you can do it at 420 or 422 at 10 bits. Now this is where we kind of get into the interesting part. So we're talking about high dynamic range, so it will support both HLG and PQ. And the reason for that is because with the different movie formats and acquisitions, for example, some broadcasters will want to be buying movie formats that are in PQ from the States. So we've got to support those, as well as HLG-derived content, which will be a lot of television commissions. So, you can't have a UHD presentation without this. How many people have seen the colour kind of curves here? How many people actually know what it does? About 2, which is good. So I thought I'd not do the normal thing of go, look, this is really important. I'd actually talk about what it means. Because this is what the human eye can see. Right, and so when we talk about UHD, we talk about up-resing. We talk about the ability to have a much bigger resolution, but that's like one bit of UHD. The other bits are high dynamic range, wide colour gamut, and potentially a higher frame rate, although we're probably not going to see that so much in the television space to start off with, the really high frame rates, like 120 or 200 frames a second. When we talk about HDR, we're not necessarily talking about this, we're talking about the contrast range, so the difference in the blacks and the whites, and it's going to be much, much bigger. But the thing we're really going to notice, particularly in the commercials, is the wide colour gamut. So if you think about this as all the colours that your eye can see, which is kind of around here, that's like what we're looking around this bar now. So we can see what everything looks like this. This kind of looks a bit black, but it's got some other colours in it, right? But if we think about what a TV would display, like a normal HD TV, it would only actually display this colour here. Okay, so that's the colour palette you get. So think about the web in the early 2000s when you used to look at a JPEG and it just looked a bit rubbish. And then you look at your really nice Flickr images today that look just amazing because they've got millions of colours and HDR, and you can take advantage of that, and your monitor supports it. So that's kind of where we're coming from, this limited colour palette, and we're going to go up to this new, nice, big, wide colour palette out there. So it's a ton more colours. So our pictures are going to look much more vibrant, and that's important if you're making Sony ads with balls jumping down a hill, because you've got to make the balls look really nice. So that works in other industries as well. So that's what's going to be with the wide colour gamut. And why does that matter? Because actually that's where the audience at home are going to start to see the difference. They're going to go into PC World, they're going to go into Curry's, into John Lewis and see those screens, and it's going to be that real vibrant, OLEDs, incredible brightness that's going to really be very exciting for them. However, for us, that does mean new workflows, new things that we've got to think about. And it brings in some challenges to our production processes. So at the DPP, this is what we're starting to think about. And we've been working with our post members, we've been working with manufacturers and with the broadcasters to really think about what are we going to do? Because it's not just how you process it at the end, it's how you manage it in the field, and it's then how you move it from the field back either to the production office or straight into that post facility. So what are you going to do with that? And more importantly, why UHD ads now? So we learnt a bit of a lesson. We introduced HD back in 2010, and then we enjoyed a wait of 6 years before the adverts looked as good as the programs did. So what we're really interested in doing is making it the capability there so that deliveries can be made as broadcasters announce that they're moving to UHD. We want to have a spec there that's ready to say, actually, if you're delivering UHD programs, if you have the capability to play out UHD adverts, here's a specification that would support them. So that's why we're starting that work now. We've already kicked off the work, as I said, on the UHD program spec. We want to get these things ready. We're being proactive. And it's great that we've got partners like Honeycomb, like AdStream and IMD who are going to be working with us on this to get things ready for when those UHD announcements are made around channels. So that's really important for us to have that in place. So, I'm going to stop whittering on for a minute. I'm going to let Bill from ITV talk about what the broadcasters think about this, and then I'll come back in a second. Over to you, Bill.
Thank you. Hopefully you can all hear me. Let me start again. So I've been asked to say a few words on the broadcaster's perspective on UHD, and obviously working for ITV, I'm going to be biased towards ITV, but hopefully some of the points I make will resonate with my fellow broadcasters. So we all know that Sky, BT Sport are already doing UHD sports channels, but for the rest of us, I would suggest that UHD is still a bit of a tough proposition in the sense that in a commercial organisation you need to put a business case to do UHD. So fundamentally, if we were to make UHD programs today, which may still be more expensive than HD, so hopefully we'll get to a tipping point where HD versus UHD production will become cost neutral. Not quite sure we're there yet, but convincing commissioning editors and programming people that it's going to cost you X more pounds to make a program in UHD, and by the way, it's not going to put any more bums on seats or deliver any more revenue or value to shareholders. So that's a tough ask at the minute. Don't think that will be around for ever, or hopefully not too much longer, but it's certainly there at the minute. There also is a strong argument that says, well, I mean, from an ITV perspective, it would be great if we started producing some of our high-end dramas in UHD, so we future-proof it. So that would be a great place to be at the minute. Again, we're not quite there yet for the reasons that I've just outlined. I suspect it's probably the same for Channel 5 and Channel 4 and other commercial broadcasters as well. So we're very much on a journey. Again, will we launch a UHD channel in the near future? Probably not. There's big challenges around, bandwidth, storage, etc. in the linear world, so that's going to be a bit of a no-no. So I would suggest any UHD offering will be in the satellite IP world, and possibly in the pay-per-view world. We did a pay-per-view boxing event at the weekend, so it would be great if we could have done that in UHD, and I think that's probably where we'll dip our toes in the water from an ITV perspective with UHD. So it's coming. So I think, as Craig and Andy's alluded to, we need to be ready and face UHD head on. Far too often in the past, I think we've been very reactive and not proactive, as Andy touched on. I think that was very true when it came to to HD. I remember when we started doing HD channels, not just in my ITV Live but elsewhere, when we commercially decided to start doing it, there was a bit of a clamber to find HD content. So we need to try and not be in that position in the future. For those of you involved in the commercial work which the DPP have done, which is what we're focusing on tonight, I chaired the DPP group who worked on the HD spec for commercial and sponsorship delivery. And prior to that, probably around about the early part of 2015, we all had our own individual specifications for commercial delivery. And of course, commercials traditionally, the broadcasters have never touched. They've gone direct to play out, and it's been a bit of a transparent and visible process to us. So subsequently, all the technical delivery specifications we had back then, and I say back then, it was just over 2 years ago, many of them were so outdated, they still included references to film and hadn't been touched for years. So the DPP's first core task there was to come up with a common technical delivery spec for commercial and sponsorship delivery, which came off the back of the common specification for long-form program delivery. At one point we decided, to do an SD spec and an HD spec separately, and then we started working on them both in tandem. So we published an SD spec which didn't really last for long, and it was very quickly superseded by an HD specification which ITV implemented in April 2016. And even today, not all of our commercials are in HD. I think about 25% of them are still in SD, although I'm on a bit of a mission to completely eliminate SD commercials completely. And some of my fellow broadcasters have still got to make that transition as well. So we're still very, very much on a journey, and here we are talking about UHD, but I think the big key message is we need to be ready and have a UHD spec available so that when ITV and other broadcasters come to do UHD programming, we've potentially got some UHD adverts to put around about it, so the offering is complete and kind of fulfilled, really, for want of a better term. So we're about to start on the journey of producing a UHD specification for commercials. It will be combined with the HD specification. It will include the specification for UHD delivery as well. So there's a bit of work to do around about that, and we're kicking that work off I think on the 10th of August, so just in the middle of the holiday season, just soon after it. So I would encourage you all, those who are interested, to come on that journey and help us get to a position where we are ready on this occasion to implement UHD commercials rather than playing catch up, which, as I've said, we've done so often in the past, and we're still playing a bit catch up from SD to HD at the minute, so we need to make sure that we're not in that position come the time to implement UHD. So this is about being proactive, about enabling us to be able to strike when we're ready to go, rather than having to suddenly rush and produce a specification further down the road when everybody's ready to do it. So I think that's very much a broadcaster perspective at the minute. We're not quite there. We're not quite ready from a programming perspective, but I think there's a big risk it will come and bite us in the backside if we don't watch. And I would probably argue that the consumer awareness of UHD is probably now greater in the UHD world than it was when we made the transition from SD to HD. Of course, people can go out there and buy UHD televisions. Not a lot of services out there at the minute, apart from sports channels. But I think it's going to rapidly take off, and I think there will be a big consumer demand to do it. And I think as soon as we hit that tipping point of cost-neutral production between HD and UHD, it will gather even more momentum. But we want commercials and sponsorship to be in a really good place by the time we get there. So I think that's probably all I've got to say from a broadcaster perspective. Hopefully resonated with my fellow broadcasters, and I know Steve Sky are already well down the road with UHD, and fair play to you, we want to catch up and compete as well. So great.
Excellent, thank you very much, Bill. So we're going to kind of go on. Quick show of hands, who's actually made any UHD content so far? Wow, okay, it's kind of, there's some hands kind of not wanting to go up, so some have done. Not really. So what we're seeing in the kind of the challenge to get this stuff out there. So at the moment, storage clearly is going to be a big problem. If you're going to be shooting raw in UHD, you're going to have a stack load of storage on location. You're going to have a stack of storage in the edit house as well. And then obviously once you're outputting, it's a commercial, so it's quite short. So you don't have to worry quite so much as if you're doing Planet Earth and you're doing a ton of that. But that's a big challenge to have to deal with. We're currently working with some Japanese companies on 8K, so this UHD stuff's a bit old hat. But then you're talking about seriously high bit rates and seriously big files. So it's really interesting. And if you go to see Red today, I think as Craig was saying about the new Red camera, if you get the Weapon W8K, you can use that to shoot literally today. You can go down, buy one, output it, and with some of the compression, if you set your compression right, you can get the same bit rate of file as you could do with a 4K file. So you can start to get a bit more efficiency and then be really creative with huge resolution. So you can then do some really interesting things about downscaling, about cropping, and about thinking about how you use the frame in a different way. So we're going to see camera technology take that big leap quite quickly, but you're going to have to think about how you're going to manage some of those things. And comes with that is kind of two different challenges. So we talked about how you do that wide color gamut. So some of you might have heard of lookup tables, or this way that you can apply a look to when you go filming. So imagine it as the Instagram for TV. When you film an Instagram thing and you just put a filter on it and it makes it, you take a picture and you put a filter on it, you're going to be able to do that with your TV pictures. You apply a look to it, which is like a grade. So you're going to be able to do that on location. You're going to have to do that if you're shooting raw, because you're going to have to think about how you're going to deal with those rushes when you get them back. And then that starts getting much more in the cinematic production process, where you're going to be having daily reviews with the execs or with the commissioners or whoever's giving you the money to make it, because you're going to start thinking about that fast turnaround, using some cloud services, using connectivity on the location site to get that back so that people can see the quality that you're outputting. So you're going to start taking much more of a feature film approach to recording than you would in real high end. And that's going to be interesting to see how that works out. You're going to have to think a lot about the planning and the post-production pipeline. So this is going to be a big thing about working closely with your post house to understand how you're going to record. So you're going to record in RAW, what's the camera choice, what kind of look do you want for your program, and then how are they going to manage that? How are you going to manage the edit? Are you going to edit in HD and then conform? Are you going to edit natively in UHD? This is all part of that big planning that you have to do up front, because if you don't do it up front, you're really going to suffer when you get into the edit, because you haven't thought about how you want to deal with that media. So again, some of the broadcasters have put a lot of time into modeling that already and testing, and those that are shooting high-end dramas or shows like Planet Earth 2, we were with those guys last week, they spent a long time planning, 2 years of planning for the shoots, but also for the workflow, dealing with all of those rushes at 5K. So you've got to think about how you're going to manage that. Then if you're doing VFX, how you move them. Have you got the capability to move those files around easily? And finally, you know, what new tools are you going to use? So if you are going to use any of these online editing platforms, you're going to have to think about your connectivity to get that working really nicely. If you're going to work at HD, so if you're going to work at a proxy res, you're going to need about 20 megabits a second to do that. So just think about whether that's happening on location, whether that's happening back at your agency, whether that's happening in the broadcaster. So one of the things that we've started to think about in the States is how do we combine this UHD ad work with work on multivariate ads, so ads serving out to Facebook or to YouTube where it's based on your personal profile. So you know how when you go to Facebook and you scroll down your timeline, you get loads of adverts that have been beautifully personalised to you, or maybe not, that are really targeting you because of who you are, because of your age, because of your preferences, because of your friends, because where you live, all of those things. Well, we're thinking about how that then builds into that ad serving model as we move and do some work in the States with IAB, with the 4As and with Google. So we're looking at how we master those ads and then think about multivariate. So to really kind of get you thinking, think about you're making an appy advert, you're going to have some video assets, let's say we're putting it out in Europe, so you're going to have lots of different language versions of that ad, and you're going to then have different audio tracks that are aimed at different audience segments, so new mums or new dads, or older mums or older dads, or grandparents. What you're then going to start thinking about is how do I layer that all into a file, and I can automate the output of that into different versions that are going to be targeted against different people, maybe on a Sky set-top box, a Sky Q, maybe onto Facebook or a YouTube feed. So starting to think about how that multivariate serving is going to work, and that's where we're starting to think a little bit into the future, but I just wanted to put that on your radars. So we think that that's a new way to think about ads, particularly online, masters and subversions, and then kind of building them on the fly via some intelligent personalized services. But I just wanted to give you a view of what we're doing today, what we're working on for the next 6 months, and then where it might go in the future. So I hope that's enough, and I'm sure me and Bill will be around later on for any questions.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you. So we're just a delivery company. We don't hang out with really cool people. You know, we're not looking in the right direction of technology. We're really associating ourselves with really clever people, and we're following their lead. And it only works on the people giving information back into it. So as Andy and Bill said, we'll send out information. Please feel free to reach out to the guys. If you want to join the DPP, please join the DPP. Seamus plugged the boxer, who's over here as well. All these horrendous things Andy was saying about, there you go, thanks Abby. All the horrendous workflows and pipelines and scary stuff you talk about, these guys know how to talk about it. So if you want to ask, curiosity, whatever you want to do, please talk to these guys and whatever. I'm about to talk to Gorgeous George, who's behind me. I've known George for longer than I've married my wife. He's been over at Telestream, and when we first started, we reached out, and again, we wanted to really embrace the technology. Again, with the DPP, we wanted to really understand where we're moving forward. 8K is coming through, hooray. You know, we just want to make it clear that we're here listening to you, and we want to make it work. So we want to make it very clear to people that we'll be accepting in UHD. We will then do the down convert, get the HD out to the stations. When it's ready to flick the switch, we'll send the native, okay? That's what we want to do. Media is media to us. So, needless to say, over to George.
Thanks, Craig. How do you follow that guy? Well, as Craig said, we're a technology company, so I don't want to make this too boring. We provide the technology that underpins what Honeycomb does, and a lot of our customers are here too. ITV is a major user of our products and our technology. I'll try to keep this fairly simple. Some of you may know Telestream very well. Some of you may be thinking, who is Telestream? So let's give you a quick on what we can offer that are solutions for DPP files in UHD and 4K formats. Quickly, who are we? We're a technology provider based in California. We've been around 19 years, almost 20, which means we can have a beer here, but not in California. And we now have over 350 employees around the world, and there's actually about 25 of those are in the UK. Some of them you may have met, some of them are based down in Bristol in the company VidCheck, which we acquired almost a year ago, the QC software company that many of you may perhaps already use, and Craig uses. But we consider ourselves to be experts in media processing. And I classify that as anything you have to do that it does not involve a creative decision. We can't make editors better editors or colorists better colorists, but we can take a lot of the the boring technical stuff off their plates and let them be better editors, colorists, sound mixers. There are a number of things going on, some of which Andy has touched on very well, which drive what we are doing. And some of them perhaps are more important than others. We've been involved in this transition from standard definition to high definition to 4K UHD, and just working with people as that goes along. And in fact, so much so that it's just second nature now. It doesn't really change our technology. As Andy said, all of the other things that come with UHD, and possibly just with high definition, high dynamic range, high frame rate, wide color gamut, all of the file formats that have been evolving since I went to some of the first MXF planning meetings back in the 90s, and now you have IMF and you have the DPP and all of the application standards around the world, make the world more complex. There are regulatory requirements coming on everyone. You've all dealt with the loudness requirements and the requirement for accessibility with subtitles. You all understand the need to test for PSE flash patterns, and by the way, this is growing, whereas the UK was the world leader in deciding that it would be the right thing for people to test for these flash patterns. Japan followed, and some major platforms in the USA are now mandating that people who supply content to them test for PSE sensitive flash patterns. Netflix is about to do it, and we know that Discovery is doing it, just as an aside. So we think this whole understanding of being aware of things in your pictures that may have an adverse effect on some of the audience, you've got to be aware of. You have a responsibility as producers to try to avoid them. And of course, the number of delivery platforms people have to make content for. Craig touched on it. It's not just broadcast. It's not just online. It's OTT. It's all of these platforms. It's making content for watching in flights in the movies. It's an incredibly complex world. And the only way you can deal with that is to automate the process. So we talk about a few of our products which are involved in this. There is Vantage, which is file-based transcoding and workflow orchestration. I'll talk a little bit about that. Not much, believe me, I'm not going to get geeky. Lightspeed servers, which are very simply GPU accelerated servers to make the Vantage go faster. Nothing more complicated than that. I'm going to talk a little about cloud, because everybody wants to know, do I have to do this in my facility or can I do it on the cloud? And the answer is yes and yes. You can do both. And I'm going to talk about the process of quality control. VidChecker as I said, we acquired the company a year ago because we could see the need to integrate that into the whole workflow process. So that is file-based automated QC and correction. Not just find a problem, but if you want to fix the problem, it can fix it. So encoding UHD files, is it difficult? Suppose you start in an edit system, whether it's Avid or Adobe or Apple, we don't care. This is enterprise class transcoding and workflow orchestration. Proud to say, back in September 2014, this was the first product to be certified by the DPP lab. Only by a few hours, but we were the first. And when you win the marathon, it doesn't matter if you win by a second or 10 minutes, you're still the first. And we're proud to retain that relationship with them, and we are working very closely with them to ensure that as we go along, we're supporting and any of the evolving standards. It runs on Windows servers. You can apply GPU acceleration to it if you want to make it go faster. If you're a high volume user, that's important. If you're someone working with very short deadlines, that's important. Otherwise, maybe you don't need it. These are the key points, though. I've got to pay credit to the foresight of some engineers in our company who started thinking about this product 9-10 years ago, and they built into it that it was natively would support 4K and even 8K. It has 16-bit video processing, so we don't care about things like HDR and wide color gamut. We can handle all of the resolutions that you throw at it. So it's future-proofed. And there are a whole load of application notes on our website about how you can use this technology to build DPP-compatible encoding workflows from any of your edit systems, where you can drop from the timeline of Adobe or from Avid, drop a file in and say, make me a DPP compatible asset, and deliver it off to wherever it has to go. They're on our website, on that link. I'm sure you can all read it, and you can all find it. And you can start with that kind of software, not including the computer to run it, but you can start with that kind of software. It's just in sterling, just under £10,000 will get you an enterprise class license that can take that kind of production workload off your hands. It can go more expensive if you want it to be more complicated, but it starts at that price. So touching on what Craig said, these things are accessible for customers of many sizes. Now, customers of different sizes don't want to invest in on-site, on-premise equipment, may not have the facilities to do it. They may want to offload it to the cloud, where in fact all of Honeycomb's processing is happening anyway. So we offer a transcoding service on the cloud. We're very ingenious product namers, so we call it Telestream Cloud. You can tell we've got brand managers there, haven't you? And what we have in that is either simple transcoding, or you can go to a more advanced service, which will do a DPP encode and package service paid for on an as-used basis. It supports native 4K. It's billed based on how much you encode. And you can get a subscription on that for starting at $99 a month. If you want more details, go there and have a look at it and talk to anyone from Telestream or the nice people from Boxer, Mark and Abby up there will happily give you some information on it. But the whole point about that is it's fundamentally the same as running a Vantage software on-premise. For those who have different volumes, different infrastructure preferences, you can run it up on the cloud and just pay on a subscription basis instead of a capital expense basis. And finally, you've got to quality check these things. You've got to know when you're delivering a file, does it comply? Does it meet the legal specs? Does it meet the target platform's technical specs? So VidChecker, based in Bristol, is the company that developed what we call a second generation QC software, automated software. It is certified by DPP, and they've worked very closely with those guys. It is resolution independent. We've currently got people testing all the way up to 8K. So again, it's future proof. If you invest in this, it'll go with you wherever you want to go. And as far as the Dpp X1 Test Templates, they are currently in our engineering lab. So that's the UHD template for DPP files. Probably, I would think within the next 2 months, that'll be out of engineering and just released. And those of you who are in post-production companies or agencies are probably serving more than just the UK broadcast market. So it's useful to know that if your client says, I also want this tested for compliance with Netflix or iTunes or German broadcasters or French broadcasters, all of the templates for their particular standards are in there. It would have been nice if the whole world had said to the DPP, yeah, you've done a great job, we'll do exactly what you've done, but they didn't. They did their own thing. And while they are similar, they're enough difference that you need to have some way of checking that when your client says, great, you've done a great job, now I've sold this ad to the German broadcasters, can you check it complies with what they want? This already has the templates baked in. This is a key point for us. Again, I mentioned the PSE flash pattern testing in which the UK led the world. We bake this into the product. We don't charge extra for it. It's just part of the test if you want to do it. And we believe we're the only QC software company that actually includes it at no extra cost. So, and that is going to become even more important when people outside of the UK start saying, yes, we want to check that we have no flash patterns. And it integrates nicely with the Vantage workflow system. And just again to talk about accessibility, some of you may already be, I'm sure many of you already know VidChecker Post. You can start with this for a fully automated software that will run 24/7 and test your files for under £7,000. So again, talking on what Craig said about the accessibility of this technology is dramatically different compared to, say, 10 years ago. And all the information you want is there, or yet again, speak to Mark and Abby and they'll help you. So all we would say is if you, as an ad agency or a post-production company, feel you need to do some of this processing, encoding, packaging, and checking on your own facility, Trust Telestream will help you get there. Boxer will help you get there as well. And it's been great partnership working with Craig and Honeycomb, and we'll continue to support them and the DPP and whatever they want to do to help you create these great programs and ads to your clients. Thank you.
Well done, George. Holy guacamole, 45 slides. Well done you. Hey, well done you. So, yeah, give yourself a round of applause. So, hey, I must have known. Hey, fantastic. It's not going to be long till you can actually start drinking. Okay, now be responsible, Abby. Was that informative? It was a lot of information to get into your heads. We apologize. Please see that we're actually being very motivated, easy for me, in the marketplace. We're trying to future-proof ourselves and understand what you guys want. Please come and see me. Please ask questions. After this event, please reach out to us as well. You know, we're accessible. We want to help, okay? Any questions? Wait. Sorry, Matt, I had to put you on the spot. Any questions, come and see me. But please, I've always wanted to say this, to the bar. Thank you.